You're listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast with your host, Maggie Magen.
Hi, small business owners. Welcome to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where we focus on creating brilliant breakthroughs for the small business owner. And FYI, this is also the name of the #1 Amazon best-selling business book series for small business. It's titled Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner, and the subtitle is Fresh Perspectives on Profitability, People, Productivity, and Finding Peace in Your Business. And you can get a digital copy or a paperback of this book we're referencing today at Amazon. Well, and we're on other sites as well, but that's probably the easiest one for most folks. And the book we're referencing today, because this is a series, is Volume 2, which is the book that has the emerald green cover on it. Today's conversation is with #1 best-selling business author from the 2018 book, that's Volume 2, Clive, Extence. And we're going to introduce him formally in a moment. But for now, I want to say hi, small business rock stars. My name is Maggie Magen. I'm a #1 best-selling business author and founder of that #1 best-selling Brilliant Breakthroughs annual business book series. Wow, that's a lot of B's. And for 15 years, I've been a master business coach and trainer at Brilliant Breakthroughs, Inc. So, Clive, we want to welcome you and congratulate you on your recently new #1 best-selling business author establishment. Congratulations. The crowd was wild. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It is exciting.
It is exciting. And it's exciting, I would imagine, even more for you because this is more like a legacy chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, you got me into that. I appreciate it. It brought me back into the classroom, and I appreciate that.
Okay, so everyone, Clive is a great professor of business and people. I'll add and people because his insight to people is phenomenal. And I know this firsthand. So yes, he's referencing that I invited him to be an author in our book because I know what he teaches day in and day out, whether he has a classroom or not.
That's right.
So
Every
Clive,
moment is teachable.
it is a teachable moment. Every aspect of life is, and you personify that. So I want to thank you and everyone. This is a real treat. The chapter that Clive wrote in our 2018 book, it's the 3rd chapter in the book, and it's titled, It's All Management 101. What a great title, Clive.
Well, thanks. Came to me in a flash. As soon as you asked me to write a chapter, I thought of that right away.
Oh, well, I didn't know that, so that's cool. But sitting back in your classrooms for more than one class, I've come to realize that that's really what you bring forward immediately in any conversation. So I love that. I absolutely love that. And I want to share with our listeners, today we're picking up from a conversation that we had in episode 77. And in that episode, we started out talking about management by walking around, management by walking away, and then what motivates employees. And we really didn't have time to give that last part the justice that it deserves because small business owners, you work with people and you need to know what is motivating others and what isn't. And take a look at yourself in the middle of this conversation as well. So if you like what you hear, also go back and listen to episodes 63, 70, and 77 because those are the warm-ups for what you're about to hear today. Right, Clive?
I think you're right. I can't remember all those numbers from sitting here, but
don't worry, I got it covered.
I'm sure you're right.
Okay, so last time we started talking about what really motivates people in a professional setting. And Clive, you started introducing a study that's been around for a long time. And I thought maybe that might be a good place for us to start, for you to share what it is and why it matters, and then talk about some updates of that.
Yeah, well, it's one thing we struggle with. I worked in production management for many, many years. I was a plant manager for 6 years, operations manager for 20. And of course, in all that time, you constantly struggle with how do you get people to do what you need them to do, and what motivates people to do that job that they come in, they punch in for. And I'll say punch in because of my production management background.
Okay.
But we all struggle with that very concept, what motivates people. And too many managers, myself included, early on, thought, well, what motivates me motivates them. And it gets addressed in our latest book of that platinum rule. It's not the golden rule so much as the platinum rule. And it's not necessarily what motivates me. We got to find out what motivates them, right? And in some cases, it is the same. I mean, because we're human beings after all, and there are certain generalities that we can address through motivation because we are human. We're social animals. And one of my favorite that I would bring out, one of my favorite studies that I would bring out in the classroom was Herzberg's two-factor theory. And that's a large study he did back in the late 80s. So it was somewhat dated, but I would keep revisiting certain studies, and I would see that they really didn't change much. The rankings of what motivate people really didn't change much. And if you sit and look at them and analyze the rankings, and you really think about them, you use some introspection here, you can have those aha moments and realize, yeah, I guess that does motivate people. Yes, I guess that would motivate as well. And yeah, that motivates me too, but it also apparently from these studies, it motivates others as well. So one of the things we would fight, and this is where we just ended off on our last discussion, was that I proposed that salary uh, is a more of a demotivator than a motivator. Salary actually demotivates your employees more than it motivates them. Now, obviously, salary does motivate people. It motivates you. It motivates me. This is assuming that you are paying your people well enough. This
Okay.
is assuming that you're paying them a living wage, so that it's not first and foremost on their mind, even though they think it's first and foremost on their mind. But these studies show that we all fool ourselves. Managers fool themselves, employees fool themselves because the culture drives them, everything around them drives them to think that money's the prime motivator. And if you think about it logically, as I used to do way back when, well, okay, if it's the prime motivator, why do I have so little control over it? You don't have control over the purse strings. You can't say, well, just keep throwing money at people. You just don't have that capability. Most businesses don't have the capability.
Okay.
So even if it were the prime motivator, which most studies show it isn't, it's a mood issue. You can only do so much, and then you're done.
Okay. I'm with you.
So let's see what really motivates people. And Herzberg found out that there was a number of things that actually he found salary was somewhere around 11th on the list, which was that aha moment for me. I knew it was low, and I didn't want to bias it because I knew it was even low for myself. I always knew I could make more money if I went to a different job, went to Milwaukee instead of working in little old West Bend. I could make more money, but I didn't want to. I mean, I obviously wanted more money, but I didn't have the desire or the need to uproot things that I really liked. So what did I really like? What was motivating me? I sat and thought about that. What is really motivating me to stay here? And it was the culture, it was the work, it was the environment, it was the people. There was a whole host. It was the satisfaction I was getting. And that's what Herzberg found in his studies. And he called them satisfiers and dissatisfiers, meaning that everything we're going to talk about can motivate and it can demotivate. Everything we're going to talk about either motivates or demotivates, depending on where you are in your life, let's say.
Okay.
And the number one thing that he found to motivate people was the sense of achievement. People want a sense of achievement. They want to feel like their work is meaningful. They're doing a good job. People want that. That was the prime motivator in those studies. The second motivator was recognition. Genuine, heartfelt, meaningful, specific recognition. You're doing a good job. Thanks. And not just generically. You're doing a good job, and i.e. specifically, you brought your sales up last month. You brought scrap levels down last month by a certain percentage, and what have you. So you got to be specific, and you've got to be fairly current with that praise, a recognition. And Herzberg's third motivator was the job itself. So that's the kind of work I want to do. And that's how I felt when I was working in West Bend. I didn't go to other companies. I checked out other companies, but I was completely satisfied, for the most part, with the work I was doing. And I knew I could make more, but it wasn't worth it to me.
Okay.
I was getting other motivation from the work itself.
Well, I get that one because sometimes I get some ridiculous offers presented to me. And I say ridiculous because they're ridiculous.
Right.
And insane and big numbers, but there's no way on earth I would ever take that job.
Right.
No way. So I get it.
I would ask students when we talked about this, how many people are getting paid what they're worth? And you'd have a smattering of hands go up. Not that many, a third or less of the class. And I say, well, why? Why are you still at that job then? If money's the prime motivator, go find a job that pays you what you're worth.
Ah.
But, so then they started thinking about that.
So you showed them there was a gap between what they thought and how they behave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing I used to do in pretty much every class was, okay, what motivates you? I would ask them specifically. Remember, we would fill the board with all those things that people would shout out, this is what motivates me. And invariably, there would be 3, 4, 5 people saying money, money, money. And so I'd put the check marks up by money. And then that brought us back to the rankings in most of the studies, which shows money's. It depends on the study, depends on the time, depends on who you're studying, whether it's professionals or just a general swath of employees. I've seen money motivate people from third down all the way down to 11.
Okay.
And that we would talk about that. So that kind of hopefully brought that little light bulb over people's heads saying, oh yeah, I guess you're right. I do work because I like the job.
Mm.
You might be able to make more money being a sanitation engineer. Why don't you do that? I don't like the job. So money isn't the prime motivator.
Okay.
And I think I brought a couple of points last time we talked about examples of why money actually demotivates. For managers who try to use money to motivate, think at the end of the year. I went through this every year. You have to rank your employees. So you've got corporate tells you you've got 4%. Divvy it up. Okay, I said, let's do that. All you guys, and I'd be speaking to the classroom. We get 4%. Good news, guys. We got 4% this year. Everybody gets 4%. How many did I motivate you by? How many people in class? Let's say there was 20 students in class. How many people said they were motivated by that 4%?
Oh, probably not many.
Probably about 4 or 5. Everybody else, no, demotivated. Wait a minute, I just gave you a raise. I gave you 4%. Oh, yeah, but I work twice as hard as she does. We get into that issue. Okay, well, let's back it up then. I'll do it more fairly. I'll rank you by your evaluation. So you get 5%, and somebody else gets 1%. How many did I motivate? Doing it the fair way. How many did I motivate doing it the fair way? Well, even the people I would give 5% to, I only got 1% more. Get out of here.
Well, and I think you bring a really valid point forward, Clive, because you're talking about that's how corporate does it. But today, when we have that circumstance in our business, small businesses, which can be pretty large, 1 to 500 people, we still behave that way, and it's not serving the individual nor the business best, is what you're
Exactly.
saying.
Exactly. That
Is it
mentality
okay?
we've had for decades.
Okay. So,
So let's
so
trust let's trust the studies. Let's try trusting the studies once. And
right.
when I looked at Herzberg's, what he said motivates employees, what the employees he studied, what they told him motivated them. If you look at it in a macro sense, we would look at it on the board and I say, you notice anything about what we're seeing here? And I was trying to bring out the point, all of these prime motivators, these things that managers can get people to enjoy their jobs more, do a better job, be more effective at their work. You don't have to budget for. You don't have to spend money to get those. You can be an effective manager without budgeting for extra money for this, that, or the other. How much money do you have to budget to put people in the right job, make sure that they are in the right job? How much money do you have to budget to get people a sense of achievement? How much money do you have to budget to recognize people?
Mm,
Thank you. Good job. Oh, well, let me buy you a coffee. Let me buy you a pizza. A little bit of money, but the point being is you really don't have to budget for this. I mean, the budget process takes care of itself because, okay, you got 4%, or you get 0% this year, or you get 10%, whatever the money, it's kind of out of your control for the most part. So you've got to divvy it up somehow. So forget that. Do that as fair as you can, but that's not what drives people to work and do an effective job and like their work. All these other things do.
okay. So what does?
Well, here's what it does. I took a look at a recent study, jumping from 1987 to 2018, 2019. And this was 200,000 employees, 500 companies. It was coming from Psychology Today and Forbes magazine.
Great.
Victor Lipman was the author, Lipman, and he found in his study that the number one motivation, the thing that what really motivates employees, what they're telling him in the studies, was the camaraderie and peer motivation.
Okay, say that again. Camaraderie and
Peer motivation.
peer motivation. Okay.
We can come back to that because I thought I had some insights on that, and I believe you do too.
Okay.
And the number two thing that motivated his group of 200,000 people, desire to do a good job.
Yeah.
Guess what? That was number one in 1987. That was number one in Herzberg's study.
Okay.
How about the third in line that motivates people? Encouragement, recognition. That was number two in Herzberg's study. Now it's number three.
Okay.
Number four was having an impact or making a difference. That was always, to me, that was an aha moment for me because that was personal for me. Making a difference was, I always felt, one of my prime motivators. Making things better than they were yesterday and last year.
Great. Okay.
And as a manager, there's lots of ways to do that, obviously.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
And we'll stop it at 5, professional growth, which also coincidentally was number 5 on Herzberg's list.
Okay, great.
Notice we haven't got to salary or benefits yet. In today's study, the current study was number 7. So 7th on the list of all the things that motivate people was salary and benefits.
So we have a lot of things we can do before we even start talking about cold hard cash.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can be a more effective manager by trusting these studies. Now, here's the caveat. You're biased. You as a manager are biased by the same cultural processes that employees are biased by. Show me the money. Put it in my paycheck. You're only giving me 2%. Get out of here. You
Okay.
have to fight that. You have to fight that. You have to understand that that's going to happen. It's natural. It's driven by our culture. And you just have to get over it. I mean, you have to push ahead, trust the studies, and provide people what the studies say actually motivate them. And my guess is you will motivate them. You will make happier, more effective, more engaged employees. And they will stop asking eventually. They will stop saying, put it in my check, show me the money.
Well, if they're feeling valued, that covers everything in my mind.
That's our
However,
bias. You and I are educators kind of at heart, and that's our bias. Yeah, if you're feeling value, that should cover most of it.
right.
And
And, how someone feels valued is different, and that's up to whoever's managing them to unlock that key to motivate them effectively.
right. That's where you got to forget the golden rule and remember the platinum rule, because every individual is different. They're going through different things in their life at 18 as opposed to 28, as opposed to 38, as opposed to 58. And that's why managing is difficult, because you have to manage within a certain guidelines, and yet understanding everybody's motivated by a little bit different things at times.
Well,
So you
sure.
have to keep.
As parents, we effective parenting, I should say, effective parenting is treating each child with whatever it is that are their circumstances, their motivators, their demotivators, their interests, etc. Because they are different people. So if we are effective parents in this regard, then all we need to do is move that to our workplaces.
Well, basically, I would agree, the same concept.
Right.
Obviously, you'll have pushback with the use of the term of parents and treating people like children. No, we're not. It's beyond that. It's
Well,
treating
it's not
people with it.
parenting. I'm talking about that understanding and then the application of everybody needs to be treated differently.
Correct. Right.
That,
And too
that's
often, and too often, remember I used that term sloppy, lazy management a few times in my texts. But it's too easy, sloppy, lazy management. It's too easy to treat everybody the same, because again, that's culturally pushed at managers. You have to treat everybody the same.
mm,
Obviously, certainly, you have to in a macro sense you do, but in a micro sense you can't. You can't afford to. Everybody's different.
I wish everyone could see my face right now that as you're saying you have to treat everybody equally, I have a big frown
But
because
that was the management thinking for decade more than decades.
right, right. So what I
That
find
shift,
I'm sorry, Clive. What I find fascinating about this is we have studies that are 30 years apart, roughly 30 years apart, and we still come back to money not being in the top five.
right? Exactly.
That's fascinating. What the new number one, camaraderie and peer motivation. What are your thoughts as to why that is? Let's hear what the professor has to say.
My mind jumped to what we were trying to do back in the 80s and the 70s, and especially in production. We were trying to get people to work together in teams. Group technology was starting to come into play, because we learned that from Japan and from Sweden. Getting people to work together in teams, build a car as a group instead of the assembly line. So we were pushing that teamwork, the teamwork approach. And we had fits and starts with that, because again, we didn't know how to do it very well. It's very difficult to get people to work together, let alone work together in teams. And some people learned how to do it quite well, and other people struggled with it. I remember doing the study on that, because it was my master's thesis. I was trying to get teams in there where I worked, trying to push this team approach to production. And there were studies even back in the 80s that showed that major employers were still working at this. I mean, still trying to flesh this out after 15 years. They took it on early on. You know, they started this in the 70s. Here it is in the late 80s, and they're still struggling with it. And again, a lot of that has it's the American culture. You know, we're all in America. We were told to go out and win the West, hop on the saddle, go out and win the West. You know, the John Wayne syndrome, and rugged individualism is our kind of our mantra. So it was difficult for us to transition, I think. And that was the first thing I thought of was, oh, camaraderie and peer motivation. Number one, yeah, people are working in teams now. They're being collaborative. There's I think so much of that makes sense. I want to be able to. I like when my peers tell me I'm doing a good job. I like the camaraderie. We're social animals. I like going to work and getting in together with my team.
I agree with you. I also think that there's an added component to that with technology, because through technology, some of us have become more isolated and are looking for, as you said, we're social animals. I say we're social beings, same difference. We are social people, and we are looking for connection and relationships. So when you're talking about the camaraderie and the peer motivation, I see that as being a big part. There's a lot of trends of building community now and people seeking community. And this is one of the ways that it shows up in our workplaces. Very
Well,
exciting.
exactly. And the number 2 and number 3 motivator, according to Herzberg 30 years ago, and this study from a Tiny Pulse survey today, is recognition. That was always such a powerful motivator. And it doesn't make any difference if it comes from our peers or from our bosses. We like it wherever we get it. We like recognition. Again, I can't tell you how many people, and I was one of them. I don't need no stinking recognition. But I was just kidding myself. You know, that was 40 years ago. That was my thought process. I just want to be able to do a good job. I want to have pride in my work at the end of the day. I don't need the recognition. And I was lying to myself. This culture kind of brought me up that way.
You know, Clive, I just came from a eWomen Network meeting with the Milwaukee chapter, and this was part of the topic is stand up and be recognized. When you've done something awesome, stand up and own it. And how we've been taught not to do that. And dang it, we should, because when you're awesome, you're awesome. And we know that success breeds success. Anything breeds itself over and over and over. So it's important for us to get that encouragement through the recognition. The key is people like to be recognized different ways.
Right. And again, that addresses that peer motivation. I thought was that, okay, we work together more collaboratively now. We work in groups, and peer motivation is just as good as our boss patting us on the back and saying we're doing a good job. It's still positive reinforcement, positive motivation, and it's a strong driver. It's 1, 2, or 3 in just about every study you see. We want to be recognized. I don't care if you're a truck driver or a ditch digger or you're a plant manager. We all want to be recognized, whether we say it or not. And you just have to, again, trust the study, right? Trust the study.
And that's what I appreciate about you sharing this is you take the time to do the deeper research. And anyone who's interested in this, you can go pick up that article through Forbes or Psychology Today. So this is exciting news. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
And remember, even in this study, salary and benefits came in 7th.
I know, isn't that crazy?
Yep. Professional growth was number 5. Having an impact, making a difference was number 4. Again, all those top 6, you don't need to budget for. You just need to be a better manager. You need to address those and find ways to make those things happen, to bring them about.
Right. So It's not necessarily finances that are holding you back from motivating your people. It's your creativity and your willingness to do something different.
Yes, like management by walking around.
Hey, there you go. We're right back
Well,
to that.
prime motivator for being a good, feeling like you're doing a good job, having a sense of recognition is management by walking away. The other MBWA. If you set people up, give them the training and the skills where you can manage by walking away, you become a better manager, and you've motivated your employees. They're more effective.
Absolutely.
All it took was time, thought, trial and error, more time. Action. It just takes action.
Oh, well, I imagine that everybody is going to go back and listen to a couple of your other episodes, Clive. And I can't imagine what we're going to talk about over the next few episodes, but I'm going to embrace that you're going to take us somewhere that's really going to help us out a lot. I want to thank you for sharing this today because this is good stuff, but I bet you have a quote you want to share with us before we wrap this puppy up.
Yeah, I do. And it addresses this issue as well. It's from Maya Angelou. And I've learned that people will forget what you've said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And as a manager, I think that's a strong way to approach your employees.
Okay.
People will never forget how you made them feel.
So
So
now,
it's
oh, go
lots
ahead.
of books out there saying, hey, make them feel good. People want to feel good about their work. They want to feel good about themselves. It's human nature. As a manager, that's how you motivate people.
Right. So if somebody loves this quote and they're already applying it to their life, the next step is take it to work.
They get to work.
It,
Don't be afraid to humanize the work environment.
beautiful. Beautiful. I wrote down something on my whiteboard that says we need to be cross training. We need to cross train humans better. And
That was one of
but
my
it's a
first
can of worms.
management. That was one of my first management aha moments when I got out of the service and I started working in data processing. Called it data processing in those days. It was IT. But I worked at JCPenney. And you were brought on board saying you're going to work 2 weeks in this area, 2 weeks in this area. It was like 6 different areas, and every 2 weeks you rotate because you were going to cross train you. So they're going in. There was no question about it. That was the job. That was the environment. And fortunately, I had the mindset where I liked that anyway. But the more I look back on that process, that's powerful. We could do a whole series on cross training people, building a deeper bench. Way to motivate them.
Right. Completely.
Maybe we'll
Well,
talk about that next time.
okay. Are you game for that?
Sure, I
Okay.
am.
All right. So we have to wrap up this one, but I want to say thank you. Listeners, this is how you can learn more and engage with #1 best-selling business author, Clive Extence. Start by reading chapter 3. It's titled It's All Management 101 in the newer version. Oh, I shouldn't say that because I want to make sure that we get this right. The 2018 release, which is the green covered book, volume 2 of Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner. And you can gift your business's performance by accepting his invitation to reach out to him. He has that at the bottom of his author page. And Clive is a treasure. You have no idea how much information he has, and he's willing to share it. So please, if you have something that you think he can assist you with, reach out to him and he will follow up with you. There's something else that's really cool is if you don't even have that and you're listening to the podcast on our app, which is Brilliant Biz Book, you can go ahead and get that app at your app store. and just download it for free. Again, that's Brilliant Biz Book, all one word. And if you scroll through the app, you're going to see we have a section that's titled Click on it and ask an expert, and you'll see Clive's name there. You can go ahead and type in your question and send it off to Clive, and he'll reply back to you. I think that's pretty cool. You willing to play, Clive?
Certainly.
Okay,
I'm
good thing,
excited about
because you said yes a while ago, so let's keep
it.
this good thing going. All right, and Clive, I want to thank you for your time today, and again, your exceptional wisdom sharing.
Quite welcome. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity, Maggie.
Yeah. Trust me, go back and listen to those former episodes 63, 70, and 77, because this is practical application for you to do to your business without it costing you anything. Listeners, we appreciate you listening to the Brilliant Breakthroughs podcast, where you can go ahead and learn more about how to create brilliant breakthroughs for your small business. We'll be back next week, so until then, shine brightly.